Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Kellen here again with Droid Life. So as you can see, I've still got lots of Galaxy S10s around where, we'll review them and all of that stuff. We've first 10 things done and unboxed them and all of that good stuff. But I wanted to share just a few of these little things that have stood out to me as I've been spending more and more time with the Galaxy S10e. And they're those things that maybe as a phone nerd, I appreciate, and some of you may not, but there are these things I wanted to point out just to see if you've noticed them, if you own the phone, and just kind of share my appreciation for them, which is something you don't hear from me when it comes to Samsung phones. So let's dive into these. These are just some of the little things I like about the Galaxy S10e. So the first thing I'll point out is well, this is not really a feature. This is just something I think that's cool. It's just a nice little touch, and you've got the hole punch camera cut out right up here. You can't see it because of my background, but Samsung added like a little animation to it when it's trying to do facial recognition, sort of probably as a way to say, look me, I'm the camera, I'm trying to read your face, and also just as a cool little design touch. And one of the things I like is this right here, and it does this little animation as it's trying to read your face. You see that? So it does this little animation, and again, this is not really that big of a thing, but see how it just runs that circle? It does this on the S10 and S10 Plus as well, but it runs this little animation, and then if it scans your face, it will actually go ahead and unlock it. And you can see there it does that little unlock animation because it did read my face there. So again, this is not really that big of a deal, but it's just one of those things I find to be, well, kind of cool. And then now my phone's unlocked. So anyway, that's the first little one. What I will point out though that I think is really, really great, and this is going to be hard to show you on camera, but the display brightness on this, the range is amazing. So I'm a big dark and light phone user. When I go to bed at night and it's dark, I use my phone a little bit, and so I need my phones to get really, really dim. And most phones don't get that dim or dim enough for my liking. But this phone also gets really bright too, so it goes both ways. But if you drag this slider down on camera now, it's almost so dark you can't see. Like the screen is still on, and I know you can't see that right now. So imagine when you're in a darkly lit situation, like laying in your bed at night before you go to bed, it goes that dark. In fact, it goes so dark, I've had to turn it up a little bit from the very bottom brightness. So something I appreciate that I wish more phone manufacturers figure out. And then of course you can go crazy bright, and in sunlight, I found that this phone actually works pretty good. We've had some sun in Oregon lately, and I've got to test that out, and it's one of the biggest ranges of brightness I've seen on a smartphone. Really, really appreciate that, Samsung. Sticking with kind of this area, fingerprint reader and getting into your phone. You probably saw me use it earlier, but one thing I've noticed is that this fingerprint reader at least on the S10e, I know some people haven't been huge fans out of the gate with the in-display reader on the 10 and 10 Plus, but on the E, it's in the power button, and I've noticed that it's pretty darn fast. So if I just put my thumb on there and let go, of course I do it now, and on camera it doesn't really show up, but if you get your finger on there like you're supposed to, it actually just unlocks really quickly. This particular US unlocked model, I don't even know if it's as fast as this one down here. So this yellow version is an unlocked Exynos International version, and it was stupid fast. When I first had the idea for this video, I was using it going, wow, this is so fast. This one is also quite fast, and it works for multiple fingers. You can see I just barely tap my finger on it and it's unlocking, and I'm not holding it there. It's not reading for a really long time. I'm just kind of tapping. You can see now it's starting to get warmed up. I just tap and unlocked. See that? So it took a second, but now that it's warm, so I'm fully locked here and tap, and I'm not squeezing the power button. I'm just tapping on my finger just barely so that it can read that fingerprint, and it unlocks. So you got to be impressed by that, right? Anyways, moving on. So one of the things in particular that I really like about the S10e, I obviously like the size and the design and the flat display. I don't like Samsung's curved displays like you find over here on the Plus. And hold on, look, this is not a feature, but yes, I did already drop this phone after about 3 days, and it is shattered up front. Glass, great choice in materials, phone manufacturers. Anyways, what I was going to point out though is I like, in particular on the E, is they actually kind of shaded the camera cutout area. So on the S10 Plus, you'll notice it's just black. Like this is a blue phone and then there's a black insert. And if you were to get any of the other colors like Prism White or something like that of the regular S10 or S10 Plus, it is a black camera cutout. And so there's just black there. And I think that's actually kind of awful to look at. Now on the S10e, they actually kind of shaded. So this is actually a slight pinkish color. And then if you pick up the yellow one, same deal. It's kind of a yellowish, goldish color in there. So one of those like little design things that, again, isn't some reason to go out and buy the phone, but just kind of a cool thing that Samsung did, at least on the S10e. And yes, again, ignore the scratches there. All right, so moving on. One of the things that Samsung included with One UI on these phones is a dark mode. And we're talking like a system level dark mode. And in that night mode, one of the things I specifically like is the fact that Samsung lets me schedule when it comes on. So you guys know that Google has built in sort of a lighter dark theme into Pixel phone. It's not like a true night theme, but lighter dark. But you have to manually choose one of them, or you can have it do it based off wallpaper or something like that. It's not great. And Google may change that later on. They may actually put in a full dark theme. Samsung not only has a full dark theme that you can just turn on and it flips everything to dark, including your notification area, but they let me schedule it. And scheduling is a really big deal. So I like it to actually be the lighter UI during the day. And then when the sun goes down, I like it to flip over to dark. I'm big on reducing eye strain, if you can't tell. And so I like it to flip over, and this way I don't have to manually do it. Now there is a shortcut. You can set up a shortcut right up here to have it manually toggle all the time. But look, I like things to be automated in my life. So not only do I love the night mode, I really like the fact that I can schedule it. It's just a little thing, right? The next thing I would point out is that, well, you can see I don't use the gesture navigations. I don't like Samsung's. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you can actually turn on navigation gesture. So look, my nav bar is now gone. So if I'm in like Chrome, I can swipe up over here. That takes me into my app switcher. I can swipe up here and it'll take me home. And then I can swipe over here and that actually will go back. So there are gestures on Samsung phones. I don't love their implementation, so I don't use them. So I'm actually going to go back here and turn on my nav bar. However, I'm not sure if many of you know this, but when you have the normal nav bar set up, there is a gesture to quickly toggle between two apps. Now, it's not evident and you kind of have to stumble upon this, but if I just swipe over to the right on my home button, when I'm in this setup where the nav is showing, it'll actually switch apps. So I swipe over, you can see it switches apps. And if I swipe over and hold, I can scroll through all of my open apps, and this is just very Android Pie-ish. You know, like Google introduced its gesture navigation, and it does that same thing. Samsung's does it with the normal navigation layout. So you have a back button, a home button, your app switcher, but they also built in this fun little gesture, and so you can quickly swipe between apps. Kind of cool, right? I don't know if everyone knew that, but I discovered it a while ago and was like, hey, this is great. People should know about this. All right, another thing I'd point out, and I actually walked through this in my first 10 things to do, but if you go into advanced gestures, there is a reduce animations toggle. Again, just a little thing, and I've already pointed this out, but I think you should turn that on. So Samsung's really big into the zoom in and out, like animations every time you go in and out of an app. If you toggle that on, it'll get rid of all that nonsense. And then when you like press home or open an app, it just opens like that. There's nothing extra going on there. So I would turn that on. It's one of those little things again, but I really like the way it works. All right, so the next thing I want to dive into is actually notifications on your lock screen and actually changing the way those look. So I'll actually show you how my lock screen looks right now, right? So if I double tap and open it, you can see I've got a couple of notifications. They're fully expanded across and they show me like what they are, what app, they even show some information. You can change all that. And in fact, out of the box, they probably won't look like that. So if you go into settings and lock screen, and if you watched the DL show last week, you'll know that Tim had actually learned this on air from a reader. So go down to into lock screen, then go down into notifications. And in here, you get to change your style. So out of the box, your phone is probably on icons only. And I'll show you what that looks like. So out of the box probably looks like that. You probably just have a couple of icons showing there in this little bubble, and then you can tap on those and that'll kind of expand everything down. If you don't want to have to do that extra action, you just want to see everything right here, this is where you change it. So you go into here and you can do detailed, which will show you quite a bit of information in those, or you could just do brief and it'll show you more information, but not quite as much, if that makes sense. The other thing you can do is tap on hide content and it'll just show you kind of what the notification might be, but it won't show you really anything. You'll have to expand it to see it. So that's just an option. Transparency, you can actually adjust, which is kind of fun. So when you first set this over, it's probably going to look like that, like a white bubble. And I'll show you what that looks like. Not the prettiest thing ever, but Samsung's actually letting you adjust transparency. So I adjust my my transparency quite a bit. And it also flips the text over to white to better match and work well. So anyway, these are like little things you can just kind of tweak to make work properly. You'll notice that my text did flip over. If you don't want that, you can actually tap this toggle depending on your wallpaper, and it'll do that for you. So anyways, if you want to get more information on your lock screen from notifications, that's exactly where you do it. All right, so the last thing I want to show you then is this floaty notification bubble thing. And I don't actually know how useful it is, but it may be for specific apps or something like that. And it's actually kind of cool. So if we go back into advanced, so there is this smart pop-up option, and smart pop-up lets you decide which apps you want to have. Instead of just throwing a little notification up here, they actually pop up in like a little chat bubble. Everyone remember Facebook's chat bubbles? So if I do Hangouts, right?